This is the still life I'll be working on next. Like in the previous one, this still life has different objects that are different shapes that also possess different values within them. So there's a dark red onion, but a very light baseball. There's also an eraser, the very foreground with a big black stripe across. But the main reason why I chose it to set up this way, with the mirror in the background even, was that I wanted to have 3 bananas. So to help illustrate the idea of space and the illusion of depth, I'm going to draw these bananas, which are basically the same shape side by side, but placed on a table. The further away one will be smaller, the one closer to you will be bigger. And with that, also, I'm going to help illustrate the illusion by having the banana closest to you to have the 5 ranges of value, and as it gets further away, there'll be less range between the values. That meaning that the one furthest away will be more gray, and the one closer to you will have more contrast, where the shadows will be darker and the highlights will be brighter. And like in the previous still life, I want to pay attention to local value. That being the value that each object has without light or shadow cast upon it. So, for instance, the darker red onion and the white baseball will be very different in that their core shadows will be very dark, but the local value, one is white and one is basically black. So paying attention to that and seeing how that relates to the blue tape roll and to the yellow bananas. As I begin with the foreground, I am placing the objects in the space. To be obvious, the thing closest to you will be the largest. So the first banana will be the biggest thing on here. And the second banana will be smaller as it goes back in space. So what I'm doing is I'm using the objects on the table to help me place them in the right position. I'm measuring the onion against the tape and the tape against the baseball, and using the horizontal banana as a way to kind of place them on the page. So I'm using where the baseball lines up with the top of the banana, the stem, and then placing the onion where it relates to the nub of the banana, and using my hand or my finger or my charcoal to kind of put them in the right place. Using the same method of putting the objects on the table, I am now adding the mirror to the middle ground. The mirror here is angled up a little bit, and I can actually see myself in the mirror and some things behind me. And again, I am placing the objects in space using the other objects on the drawing as a way to measure and to place them correctly. This stage is more about placing shapes in the right spot as opposed to getting down the values and all the shadows. It's more about just finding the right space and the right shape to put it in that space. Next, I am thinking about working from dark to light. That is finding shapes in the core shadows, the cast shadows, and even in the darker local values. Next, I am going to lay a tone down for the background to help push that space further back in the drawing. And I'm going to start kind of honing in on specific values and specific shapes that the shadows are making, and keeping in mind that I want to fully develop the closer objects and gray out the objects that are further away to help illustrate atmospheric perspective. Here at this stage, I wanted to add the eraser. When I first began drawing the still life, I didn't have that in there, but I felt that I needed one more shape to kind of get the composition right, but also to show with that big black stripe across the eraser the importance of having the darker value to show the illusion of space. As I move along, I'm in a constant process of making sure that what is in front of me is what I have drawn. So I am not treating any part of the drawing as too precious where I can't just go back and re-erase or redraw. I am looking at reflected light. I'm looking at coarse shadow and cast shadow, and making sure that the shapes that I have drawn down match up with what I'm seeing. All the information that I need is in the still life, and I am looking for the areas where there is a range of values, and I am breaking them down and placing them in the right spot and relaying those values upon themselves and seeing how dark the writing on the baseball is to the value of the onion, and how dark the spots on the banana are to the other dark values, and how light the baseball is to how light the bananas are, and where the examples of highlights are versus where they are not in other objects. And here is the entire process from start to finish. Here is the still life and the drawing, and here are some more details. And my favorite part is the top right self-portrait. I think you can see it if you, there you go.